Have you ever felt really stuck and struggled to get things going again? When you feel like this, most people are going to try to do things like go to personal development seminars, read self-help books, start a meditation practice, or maybe even go to therapy. And these things definitely can help, but most often, even if you do feel better for a bit, you eventually find yourself smacking up against the same issue again. In this episode, we discuss what causes people to get stuck and how to gain that momentum you've been looking for. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you like this episode, please help us out by hitting the like button and leaving a comment below. It helps us get our content to more people like you. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're talking about the root cause of getting stuck in life and how to gain more momentum.
There's lots of people are asking me personally in my circle, what the heck is frequency work? What's frequency? What do you mean by frequency? And why would I do it? Like, what's the benefit of it?
Yeah.
I kind of stand there when they ask me, like, okay, how do I start this conversation? Because it's really difficult to kind of explain it to people that have all different types of backgrounds, right? And so I started to explain it like, okay, if you think about frequency like vibration, and then, you have to go down the road of what lowers your frequency or your vibration. And what's that little naughty thing that we've collected in a little bag of goodies from our family and our culture that stops us from being able to have a magnificent vibration. But you're better at explaining it than me. So
Okay.
I thought it would be a great conversation to have today because it's easy to forget just how important frequency and frequency resonance is.
Yeah.
Like, it's critical, right?
Yeah, totally. I'm just going to bottom line it because I think it'll be easier for people, and then we'll delve into more detail.
Good.
So everything is vibrating. And the higher your vibration, the better your life experience is, and the better you're going to feel. Period.
Say that again.
Okay. The higher your vibration.
Okay, so you're basically saying, because we're all energy, we're all vibrating.
Yep.
And now you're saying the higher we can get that vibration, because it sounds like we can get it higher.
Yes.
Than what you're saying.
Exactly. So the higher you can get your vibration, or I also say frequency resonance. So I would use those two things interchangeably.
Okay.
But the higher that is, the better everything gets in terms of what your life feels like, whether or not you can spiritually awaken, how much abundance you get to experience, how triggered you are, how centered you feel, how just randomly happy you feel for no reason, how connected and complete you feel. So all that is based in how high your frequency resonance is.
Okay, so I'm going to assume from what you're saying then, we don't all have the same frequency resonance or vibration. Why is that?
Well, we have these things called distortion patterns, which are basically unconscious blocks or I would call it programming, but they happen at a higher level order than most people. Like when I say those words, people think, okay, it's like a mental phenomenon. It's not. So in order to understand distortion patterns, I kind of have to deep dive a little bit. Okay. So everything is vibrating, like we just said. And the rate of vibration determines what the form of the thing is, right? So if you take something really physical, like water, when water's molecules are vibrating faster, it's steam. When that molecular vibration slows down, it becomes liquid water. And when that molecular vibration slows down even more, it becomes ice or solid, right? Like anybody who's fallen on ice knows that it feels pretty darn solid.
With a big bruise coming after.
Bruise, exactly. So if you extrapolate that all the way out to consciousness, you have something called source or pure source or the oneness or the divine or whatever you want to call that very highly vibrating consciousness from which everything comes and to which everything returns.
Okay.
So that is vibrating extremely fast, and none of our instruments that are physically based can yet measure it, but it's vibrating extremely fast speed. When that vibrational level slows down, it becomes frequencies. And when it slows down even more, it becomes what people talk about as energy. And when it slows down even more, it becomes physical form or matter, or even what we think of as thoughts and emotions and that type of thing. Because when I say physical, I mean our human experience, right? Which includes emotions and thoughts in addition to our physical bodies. So everything is frequency. It's just about how fast it's vibrating. So you asked, well, why do some of us have more crud in our lives that we don't want to deal with than others?
Yeah.
Right? Some people struggle more.
We clearly have different vibrational or frequency resonance, right? And it depends on a whole pile of things, I'm suspecting.
Yeah.
Now that you've talked about distortion patterns.
Yeah. So distortions, where do they come from?
Yes.
Okay. So from my perspective, when you enter the embodiment, you have to drop in vibration. And the reason for that, just in case people are wondering, is because when you're not in your body, you're infinite indestructible consciousness. You're not in form. So you're vibrating much higher. So to have an embodied experience, you have to drop in vibrational level because your body is quite dense compared to you as consciousness. So here you are dropping into form. Now, to me, what that looks like is a sphere of pure source energy that's vibrating at a very specific rate. Now, that rate of vibration is what makes you, you, and me. It's very specific to each of us. Okay, so when you drop into a body, what looks like layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of duct tape form around the sphere. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, what the hell are those layers, maybe?
I was just about to say, I'm imagining this beautiful ball of light that's pure source energy, frequency resonance, and I'm doing this so that I can come into form. Well, that would be one distortion straight away, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, and thank you for saying that, because a lot of people will think in our language, distortion sounds terrible, right? Like, I don't want that. It's a negative thing. But a distortion, to me, is anything that keeps you from being infinite indestructible consciousness.
Right.
So you're right. The embodiment is, in fact, a distortion as well, because it keeps you separate from the one. It keeps you from being that infinite indestructible consciousness, intrinsically part of the one. You know, without form.
Yeah.
So you're right. That's what that is. And then all these other layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of duct tape form around the sphere.
Okay, so those layers of duct tape, what I want to know is, where did they come from? Why all of a sudden, just because you've chosen to come into human form, do you have all these layers of duct tape? Where did they come from?
Yeah.
You know?
So most of them come from your lineage or your ancestors, because you incarnate into a body who is related to all the people who came before you.
So genetically, we're carrying all the genetics.
Yeah.
Could you liken that to the duct tape? It's like it's connected somehow?
Yeah, it's totally connected. And the field of epigenetics is starting to map how that shows up in form. So they're doing all these studies which show that what your grandparents and your great-grandparents experienced, even if you don't know their names, because, you know, a lot of us don't know our great-grandmother's names, for example, they impact how our DNA is expressed and what choices we have. Okay? So they're starting to map that from a science perspective. But those are what I call lineage patterns.
Okay.
So from my perspective, because everything's vibrating, lineage can go back not just to your grandparents and your great-grandparents. It can go back like tens of generations, sometimes hundreds.
Yeah, because we really don't know how old we are as human beings, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We've got a whole pile of distortion / duct tape.
Yeah.
Coming from that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's also things like your cultural distortion patterns and also religious distortion patterns. Now, a lot of people will say to me, well, you know, I was brought up agnostic. Like, we actually didn't have a religion in our house. I don't actually believe in anything really. And that's fine, because a lot of people, you don't have to actually be practicing something in order for a religious distortion pattern to affect you. So meaning, if your lineage practiced any kind of religion, and invariably they all did, it will be enmeshed with their lineage patterning and it will affect you. So for example, there are clients of mine where I will be working on them and say, for example, a one-on-one individual frequency calibration. And I'll say, is your family Catholic? And they'll say, yeah, but I don't practice. And I said, yeah, but you actually run a ton of patterns of shame and guilt and apology and a whole bunch of stuff around sexuality that you're not supposed to have it. And there's, like, again, more shame, but with regards to sexuality. And they're like, you're totally right. And I've never gone to church, but that affects how I feel and how I see the world. And so even though it's not an active practice for them, their lineage has practiced it. And so it's now running through the client's field.
So it's kind of like a shadow?
Yes.
Ah,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I hear you saying is that we can actually get rid of these distortion patterns and clear ourselves of these? Okay.
Yeah. And so remember that these are layers and layers and layers and layers of duct tape.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is that we're at the point in consciousness where someone like me can work at the frequency level to help you release those layers of duct tape. So why that's so amazing is because we're actually dealing with the root of the problem as opposed to just dealing with the symptom.
Okay.
So meaning like instead of just dealing with the fact that your relationship sucks or that you wish you had more money or that you're struggling with some health issue or that you wish you were more productive at work, we're actually dealing with the root cause of it, which is the distortion pattern rather than the physical symptom. Do you want to actually begin to clear the distortion patterns we're talking about? Then click on the link in the description below to get the free Group Frequency Calibration meditation specific to this episode. That's where the change actually happens.
So when you say you work at frequency level, so I just would love to unpack that a little bit because I'm imagining I'm on an individual frequency calibration with you. And I'm thinking, how is she clearing this distortion? How? Can you explain that, or is it just something that you somehow know how to do?
Yeah. So it means that my own personal frequency resonance is high enough that I'm able to perceive the frequency resonance that is the distortion pattern and then release it at the level of that, of the fields, basically, of the oneness, whatever you want to call it. So then it actually just disappears. And the funny thing is, I know that seems kind of like, how does she do that? We all can do it. We just have forgotten that we can, and you need to be high enough in your resonance to be able to do it. But I'm not special. I just happen to be a little bit ahead of everybody else.
Okay, so I'm imagining for what you've just said is that you're looking at somebody, you can see some kind of frequency resonance in the whole bag of frequency resonance that makes that individual. And somehow your resonance like shatters it like a glass when you get the right note at the glass and it shatters.
Exactly.
Is that how you describe it?
Yeah, that's how I would describe it. And the funny thing is, I don't see. Okay, so a lot of people will be like, how do you know? And how do you know what order to release the distortions in?
Yeah.
I'm always in response to your higher self. So I don't decide, like Karen the person does not say, okay, on my agenda today is to clear these distortion patterns out of this person. Because I never talk to the people I'm working with. I'm just tapping into the bundle of frequencies that is you. And then I'm in response to your higher self in terms of what's priority to clear. And usually that's because it's such a deep distortion that you may not even notice it in your life. And then after the session or after the GFC, you're like, holy moly, that is everywhere in my life. And I didn't realize it at the time.
Right.
Okay. So I'm dealing with the root of the problem. And so even though sometimes some people are like, wait, what? Why is she working on that? It's only afterwards they realize, oh, why that shows up in all these different ways in my life.
Okay.
And oftentimes people are like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I need help with. But it's not about me being in response to you telling me your story about your life.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
So it's kind of like coming up to the doctor with a cut on your finger and you want the Band-Aid for the finger, but actually you find out how the cut got there in the first place.
Yes, exactly.
And stop it coming back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it would be somebody who would be like, well, the reason you have the cut is because you have a weakness, not only in your skin, but in your immune system, for example. And your skin doesn't heal properly because you have a deficiency in this and that. And if we fix that, then your skin will heal better and you won't get cut so much, for example, you know?
Got it.
Kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the take home is, if I may, just to summarize, we come into human form, which is a distortion in itself. And then when we are in form, we're in form with a whole pile of DNA that's wrapped in a whole pile of eons or lineage, DNA lineage, which we're going to call distortion patterns because they've gotten warped somewhere along the line many times. Yeah. Okay. And then you've got your cultural, your religious, all wrapped into that as well.
Yeah, plus past lives.
Right. But because of this time that we're in and the amazing opportunities that you've had and probably other people on the planet that we don't know of yet, you're at a level now where you can come in at that distortion pattern and say, okay, I see you and your higher self has agreed, get out.
Yeah. Okay. And it's more like your higher self is like, get rid of this now. Yeah. So it's not like I dictate. I'm always in response to your higher self. Okay. So it's like your higher self is like, hey, you there who can see this or feel it or perceive it, however you want to call it. Yeah. Get rid of this. so we can move forward here.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, because I keep getting stuck in this incarnation. So let's just move along.
And because I'm a soul that understands that this is a pivotal time, I'm kind of going, get rid of it now because I do not want to come back with this.
Exactly. I don't want to come back with it. And for the people who find me, you're here to awaken in this lifetime. Mm-hmm. You're not meant to be here and be in the illusion forever. Mm-hmm. Okay. And if you're new and you're like, well, what is the illusion? Well, everything in your physical reality is a projection. And that's what's called the illusion. You know, many of the ancient traditions have talked about the illusion for a long time. And once you get high enough in frequency resonance, you actually perceive that the physical reality is an illusion and that you actually co-created, whether intentionally or unconsciously. And here's the good thing. The higher your frequency resonance, the more you're aware that you're co-creating, the better a reality you can co-create. And really, that is when life becomes more magical because you have an awareness that you are co-creating. And the other thing is, as your frequency resonance rises, you feel that you are connected to the one because you are connected to the one or the oneness, whatever you want to call it, because everything is one. And it's a very weird concept for us as humans, you know, because we run around feeling separate and I do my thing and you do your thing and we're all disconnected, but we're not. We're connected to everything. And part of the awakening process is to remember that you are intrinsically part of everything. And when people talk about the new consciousness, you know, there's a lot of talk right now about the new consciousness. What does that mean? It just means that your resonance is high enough that you start to perceive in a whole different way. So meaning that I feel a greater sense of connection to that oneness. So if I do something to you that's really negative, or I say something to you that's really negative, then I will perceive that in myself. Make sense? Because now I have a higher sense of that oneness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that you're not just doing an action in solo.
Yeah, exactly.
That your action does have a ripple effect. And eventually it will actually as well, I think, right? Hit you so hard that it's hard for you to ever do it again.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd like to come back to a point that you kind of alluded to.
Okay.
So you're saying that when you clear these distortion patterns, your reality can change. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to make that point a little bit clearer that currently the reality that you currently live in is running through these distortion patterns.
Yeah. So thank you for asking that. So you remember when I talked about those layers of duct tape?
Yeah.
So here you are, right? The sphere of pure source energy, and you're kind of sitting in the middle of it. So all you perceive is these layers of duct tape. Mm-hmm. So if you can imagine, for example, that you're sitting on this beautiful beach, right? And you're looking at the water and there's like a sunset. There are like even dolphins breaching, you know, it's like pretty kumbaya moment, right? Yeah. All right. So that's happening. But let's imagine that here you are on the beach, and between you and the sea, there's all of these filters, you know, like those old school, like things that they would put in front of cameras to change the color or whatnot. Just imagine you had like a crap ton of those and they were different colors and they distorted things. Like, you know, in like funhouse mirrors, they kind of like
make it wider.
Yeah, wider or skinnier or like, ooh, or whatever. But that's what these filters do. And so you're sitting here looking at the ocean, but what you're seeing is distorted through all those filters. Now, let's just imagine that someone's sitting next to you, or let's just say it's me, and I look at that same ocean, but my filters are not the same as yours.
Yeah.
So what I see and what I experience is totally different because we're not looking through the same set of filters. So my experience might be very different from yours. I may be like, oh my God, the ocean is so clear. And look at the sky. It's amazing. And the light from the sunset. And you'd be like, it looks kind of like it's about to rain because it's kind of dark and cloudy, you know? Do you understand?
Yeah.
It's the same ocean, but your perception of it will be different based on those filters.
Right. The reason why frequency work is so powerful is that you can clear these distortions, these filters.
Yeah.
And while you're co-creating your reality, it can become more magnificent because you're clearing the distortion patterns. Why wouldn't you do frequency work?
I know.
Then, you know?
Well, I would agree. And the other thing too is that, you know, in addition to that, not only is your life more magnificent because you see it more clearly, the speed of your manifestation increases significantly.
Yeah.
Like crazy fast. And, there are some people who have said to me, I have to be a little bit careful about what I wish for because the speed at which it comes into form is incredible and it can be a little disconcerting sometimes, but amazing at the same time. And, I know that sounds like something out of a movie, but it's really true. When you get to a certain level of resonance, the speed at which the physical reorganizes around you is extraordinary.
Yeah.
So I have a client who did the quantum manifestation workshop that I gave. And she was at the very tail end of one of the retreats that I gave also in Scotland. And at the end of the retreat, she and her sister went together and they're thinking to themselves, we kind of would love to have a spa experience, but we don't really know where to go because we're in Edinburgh and we don't want to pay a ton of money. But we really like to go have some kind of water experience because, we feel like it'll help us integrate. So they go to check into their hotel on one of their points. Okay, so one of them travels a lot. And they're like, okay, we're going to check in. We check into the hotel. And this particular hotel has a full spa. And because this woman she didn't even know this, had hit some kind of points or something like this, the spa experience was entirely free. So the two of them for the entire day went to they had different pools with different temperatures and a cold plunge and an infinity pool and there was a steam room. So they got this whole spa experience for free. And so things like that can happen. The clearer and higher your frequency resonance is, your manifestation just gets really fast because you don't have those distortions getting in the way of you and and the beach and seeing that sea,
Yeah, and I'd also like to maybe add into that as well, because I think a lot of people think manifestation is this mental concept, right? That you imagine it, you can manifest this thing into being. But what it is like you said, it's clearing the distortion patterns. And what I would add to that is, as they get cleared, and as your humanness, becomes really clear at where the glitches and distortions are, and you're keeping on clearing them, it somehow becomes easier.
Yes.
Just that in itself.
Yeah, yeah.
So the end result is even more fantastic.
Oh, totally.
Right? Because at first it can feel like, God, the self-worth pattern again?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then finally it gets cleared enough that it's no longer about trying to manifest something. It's about, oh, wow, I feel so much better just being in this human body and interacting with all these people. That in itself is such an amazing gift. I'm going to keep on doing it because I feel great.
Yeah. It's amazing how many people will write in and say, I feel happy for no reason.
Yeah.
That in itself is so valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask people, they've done the study, what do you want most in life? What are the things that you wish for? The highest response is to be happy.
Yeah.
And this is happiness for no reason. That's the other thing. A lot of people think, well, if I get that car, I'll be happy. Or if I find my soulmate, then I'll be happy. Or if I drop these extra 8 pounds, which will never go away, then I'll be happy. They think something will make them happy. But it never really does. I mean, you get the thing, and I'm not saying you're not happy for a little bit, because, you can enjoy the car. I'm not saying don't enjoy the car and become a monk or something like this. But what I'm saying is that when you have happiness for no other reason, other than in this moment, you just are happy and life is freaking awesome, that's spectacular.
Oh, yeah, because you don't actually want for anything.
Yeah.
Not a thing.
Yeah.
It's the most unusual feeling.
Yeah.
Just sitting here on my couch looking outside and I don't want anything.
Yeah.
Whoa. What happened to me?
Totally. And we just had a YouTube live, actually, and one of our clients participated and she was watching it. And she'd done the quantum manifestation workshop. And she wrote in later and said, I always try so hard to manifest. And I do all the things, I follow all the steps, I try really hard, and it's always really difficult for me. So I was watching your YouTube live. This is the client writing. I was watching your YouTube live, and you were giving away this really amazing product, right? Called Spiritual Alchemy, Transmuting Chaos into Power. It's like a $500 product. And she said, okay, I'm just going to really loosely quantum manifest right now. And she said, I am going to hear Karen say my name. And she goes, and then you did. And she goes, it was so easy. I just did quantum manifestation really loosely and easily, and it happened. And I would say, to her credit, she's been doing the work,
Yeah.
right? So meaning, what do I mean by the work? It means that she's been self-aware, she's noticing what her patterns are, and she's doing the confirm the removal process. And if you don't know what that is, then check out the episode on spiritual authority, an act of power.
I think that would be a nice thing to finish off this discussion with, by finishing off saying that once I think a person understands or feels the impact of clearing a distortion pattern, I don't think you can ever stop doing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, wow, this
Yeah.
actually does work.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I got to keep going.
I got to keep going. And,
Yeah.
a lot of people will say to me, I feel like I'm a little addicted to it. Is that a problem? And I'll say, well, first of all, you know what you know for yourself. So always check in with that. But the reason people feel like they want to keep going and they can't stop is because it's your higher self being like, hey, you're releasing these distortion patterns. Like, you don't want to stay at this low vibration. Once you start picking up speed, most people are like, whoa, my life is changing. I feel better and better. And I can feel that there's this like little bit of resistance here still. And I want to clear that. I know that I can because I just cleared that other thing. So they start to pick up even more speed. Like, they like the momentum. So it's not like you're addicted to it in the sense that like now you're beholden to it. It's like you like your own newfound speed, your newfound momentum, your newfound efficiency. And like life feels so much better. And you're like, why would I ever want to go back to that? You know? Why wouldn't I want to keep going? And so they do.
It's that sense of empowerment, right?
Yeah.
I think it's like, wow, you can change your life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it comes down to. And the thing about this time that I just want to emphasize is that it is time now for us to recognize our own authority. It's not about somebody who's going to wave their magic wand over you or like spritz you with holy water or whatever they're going to do. It's really about you recognizing that you have the power to do this for yourself.
Yeah.
And that, yes, you could have a guide. Yes, there are tools, but ultimately you get to. And that's such an incredible thing because for so long we have been in this position where we're told that we're not enough, we're not worthy, we're not clear enough, we're too human, we've sinned, whatever the thing is. We're never going to be good enough to awaken. It's now time to understand that it is time to awaken and that you can do it. And it's just about empowering yourself too.
Yeah. And that's what you offer. I just heard you use the word guide. I know that you would never describe yourself that way, but I like it because for me, it sounds like, okay, I'm going to show you the way, but you got to walk it.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't make you walk it. I can point and I can put the big lights here. Flash, flash, flash. But you have to be the one that actually walks it.
Yes.
And you provide the tools for us to be able to do that.
Yeah.
That's why we do frequency work, right?
Exactly.
Bottom line, do you want a better life or a better experience as a human being living in this reality?
Yeah.
Then do frequency work.
Yeah. Exactly. Now you know how important raising your vibration is and how to do it by releasing your distortion patterns. But how do you actually start calling in the life you want? Did you know that you're sending out a specific frequency to the universe and your life is a reflection of that frequency? To learn more about what frequency you're broadcasting and the specifics of what you need to do to call in the life you want, check out my next video. I'll see you inside.